Council members Anderson.
Here.
Benega.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Costello.
Here.
Jamison.
Here.
Knutson.
Here.
Litz.
Here.
Staggers.
Present.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business this evening is a presentation of a donation by City of South Dakota for the Coliseum Exterior Restoration Fund. We have Jerry Noctegal here today from Citibank, and Ken McFarland is going to introduce the subject. So you can come on up, both of you.
This is really a very, very special day for the city and the county. A number of years ago, as you recall, the Sioux Falls Coliseum was in a bad state of disrepair, both on the interior and the exterior. And through a wonderful collaborative agreement between the state of South Dakota, Minnehaha County, and the city of Sioux Falls, an agreement was reached to restore the interior of that facility. And if those of you who have been down there know what a wonderful project that turned out to be as the home for the Multicultural Center of Sioux Falls. Ever since the interior was redone, there's been a concentrated effort to make sure that the exterior of the project of the building gets restored to its original glory. And for those of you who may not know this, there was a committee formed to take a look at that, and that committee consists of Mary Dean Janklow, who is the chair of the committee, Carol Tweet, Dee Knutson, Diane Metley, Steve Metley, Linda Munson, Bill Hoskins, Bethany Irk, and we couldn't do this work without the wonderful assistance from a great architectural firm, Chris Schultz from Koch Hazard. The 4 projects that have been identified to be done on the exterior are tuck pointing and masonry cleaning, which is going on already, the restoration of the historical canopy, and if you haven't seen that project yet, that's done, and we've heard nothing but great comments about how accurate that looks. Replacement of some iron and glass fixtures on the front of the building, and reframing and reinstallation of some stained glass windows, the original stained glass windows that are now going to go on the south side of the building. And most importantly, the one that will really restore the building will be the removal of those green panels that you see up there right now, and that will be redone, and that'll be restored to its original castings, and we're very, very excited about that. We've been fortunate that we've been able to get funds not only from the Deadwood Fund, from the Mary Chilton chapter of the DAR. The County Commission has allocated funds in the Building Fund, and even next year we hope to approach the city for a facade easement program to help finalize the project. But what we're here for tonight, and most excitingly, is to take a donation from Citibank to help us do this project. And it's our goal that this project will be completed in 2009. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Noctegal and perhaps members of the committee.
Thank you, Ken. Good afternoon, members of the council and county commission. It's definitely a honor for me to be here in front of this group with bringing some Citibank cash for a really neat project. I can tell you that I'm confident everybody saw the story in the Argus Leader last week that South Dakota has a shortage of women in top positions in government. There's probably no dispute to that. I can tell you that looking at this group right here and some members in the audience, Sioux Falls, I think fares better than probably many other communities. And I can tell you that when Dee Knutson and Carol Tweet and South Dakota's former First Lady, Mary Dean Janklow, make a pitch to Citibank about some funds for the Coliseum, they're very persuasive. And it's our hope that the $10,000 that we're contributing to the project will go a long ways towards completing it. We know it's not enough to finish it, but we think it's hopefully a good start, and that others from the private sector and public dollars and foundations and others will step up. Particularly when you look at the history of the building. President Woodrow Wilson was there, Al Jolson was there, Bob Hope was there. I think you can even add that Kadir Aware is there. And we all know and love Kadir. So, City has played what we think is an important role in the development of Sioux Falls and South Dakota of late. Since we got here 27 years ago, it's been a tremendous partnership. We as a company have certainly benefited from being here in Sioux Falls and in the state. We enjoy giving back to great projects, and this is certainly one of those. So the check itself, I believe, is made out to Carol Tweet. Not you personally, Carol.
Down tomorrow.
Please make sure it finds the right place, Carol, and we know it will. But again, we are just delighted to be able to play a role in the restoration of this historic building in Sioux Falls that has had a tremendous amount of historical significance to the city over the years. So thank you. I guess I'll give this to Ken for good safekeeping. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We really appreciate it, and send our thanks to the folks at the city, if you would. Let's start out with item number 1. Oh, yeah, we need a motion. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
I so moved.
Knutson makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second, let's.
Let's second. All in favor? Aye. Yes. Opposed? No.
Councilmembers Anderson,
Yes.
Benninga,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes. Second. Aye.
Okay, let's move to item number 1.
Item number 1 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Article 15.02, Adult Uses of Appendix C of the Code of Ordinances of said city.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Herman, and I represent Minnehaha County Planning. This is a request to amend the joint zoning ordinance between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. The state has recently enacted new regulations for the location of adult-oriented businesses, and we are proposing making our ordinance the same as the state's. Right now, ours is much less restrictive than what the state has adopted. There are several changes that would take place in Article 15.02 on the county side. The first would be to amend the offset distance or setback distance that an adult business needs to be from other uses. It would change from 500 feet to 1,320 feet, or a quarter mile. Second, we have some text descriptions that would change, such as we had listed a church, and that would change to a place of worship, and this is just to match the wording that's in the state regulations. We would add a couple of adult uses that had been left out of the ordinance, and those would be video or DVD store and adult mini motion picture theater. And the last would be to add a new section which regulates the hours that an adult business can be open. This has been reviewed by the Office of the State's Attorney, and they did research on this and have found that similar laws have been upheld by the courts when they were challenged. This was before the Joint Planning Commissions on July 28th, and they recommended unanimously to approve these text amendments. And so your action tonight is to approve or deny the text amendments. That's the end of the staff report.
Questions, Kermit?
Yes, I guess the question I have is, since the state already has this law, why do we have one for the city and county?
Well, I think it's easier for everybody involved. It's easier for staff that we have at both places, and then for the citizens, they don't always know to check both places. So if they check one or the other, they're going to hit it and get the right regulations.
So from what you're saying, it sounds like it's going to be identical after this passes. Is that right? The city and the county and the state, is that true or not?
I don't know about the city, your own ordinance, but the state and the joint ordinance will be pretty similar. The state doesn't list out the adult uses like we do, but the rest of the text will be the same.
Other questions? Okay, Bob.
One of the things that I wondered is we're always going through the definitions, why it just couldn't say any visual medium, because we have no idea what's coming into the future, because we're talking about DVDs, and we talk motion pictures, and we talk about bookstores and videos, and just any visual medium would seem to be more nebulous, and it would not need to be amended into the future.
Well, we'll shorten it up. If you'd like to amend it, you certainly can.
I throw that out for discussion.
Further questions? Others that wish to address the joint council and commission on item number 1? Please give your name and address, please.
Members of the council, members of the committee, my name is Chris Hupke, president of the South Dakota Family Policy Council. I thank you for this privilege to address you. This legislation, as it passed last session, passed both houses with a 2/3 majority. Careful consideration was given to finding legislation that had been upheld in other cases, and this legislation has, and so we would ask for your support of it. I have brought along, and I wanted to certainly be appropriate in this, I did bring along some background information for your benefit to look at case precedent in the past specific to the zoning regulations and the quarter of a mile. In reading the recent Argus Leader article, it was clear that there was some concern on the council and the commission that this might have some constitutional challenges, and so I wanted to just bring these along to address those concerns where it might be appropriate. And I thank you very much and would ask for your support of this.
Questions,
Thank you.
Chris? Kermit?
Yeah, Chris, I suspect you were really involved in peer with
Very
this
much
legislation. I was always curious, why do we want to separate these adult businesses from each other, like 1,320 feet? Wouldn't it be better just to get them concentrated?
Well, it's a good question, and I think what you're trying to do, where you find concentration, there is studies do show that there is an increase in problems in those areas, and so to separate them out would diminish that problem.
Further questions? Not, thank you. Others that wish to address the joint city council? County?
We ask Gordy Swanson just to, I believe he's been consulted on this, just to see what his verdict is besides what was written in the memo. Do you mind, Gordy?
No problem. Gordy Swanson from the Minnehaha County State's Attorney's Office. The research that we did in our office gives an indication that the kinds of bans that have been struck down regulating adult-oriented businesses have been ones that in effect create a total ban. And this certainly does not do that, particularly in the joint city-county area. There are still plenty of locations where these types of businesses could operate. And so, given that, I don't find a specific case with an exact ordinance exactly like, or, precisely like this one that was under challenge, but I do find that location restrictions, our restrictions, as long as they're reasonable and as long as there's a policy justification for them, which I'm sure you could find in the record of the state proceedings, would hold up to a court challenge.
Questions? Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Swanson, what would happen with the existing operations that may find themselves crosswise with our new ordinance, zoning ordinance?
The zoning folks might be better able to address that than I, but I wouldn't think that this new application would apply to anybody that's already, I would think that they'd be grandfathered in under the existing ordinance.
Scott?
I see nods, I think, from the planning office.
Yes, that's correct, what Gordy said, and we don't have any businesses in the 3-mile area that fall under this category right now.
Others wish to address joint county and city? Not. Go ahead, Joe.
I move for approval. Benninga.
Bennigan moves. Is there a second?
Second, Anderson.
Anderson seconds. On the city side, any further questions on the city side? If not, all in favor? Yes. Those opposed, no.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Benninga.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Costello.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
I would make the motion, but I do think that Commissioner Colby brings a very important point in terms of other visual medium, to add that into the sections that refer to DVDs or videos, because, as you said, we don't know. And the city got through, but I would make that amendment.
I'd second it.
How do we?
You can come back.
I got to figure out how to.
It makes sense, a discussion, but it's, you know, we think about 8-track tapes, and we play everything, and who knows what's going to be next. So I think it's a reasonable point.
Where would you add that?
I've got it on point 1, sections 1, article 15.02, to go adult bookstore and/or video, DVD store, or other visual medium, and do the same thing down in B.
I'm trying to think what we have to do now. We have to take, we passed it as it is, so we'd have to make a motion.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
There's a proposed amendment. There's been a second, but County Commission hasn't voted on that proposed amendment.
I know, but we have.
But we haven't discussed
I
it.
understand, but if it doesn't
You guys can,
survive-
but what do we do then? Because we
Yeah.
passed it as it is.
Yeah, we haven't voted on the amendment yet.
It may not
Yeah.
pass.
Can
Okay.
you go
Then
back and
it's-
amend it?
But if it does,
Then it goes back.
One of our lawyers that are sitting out there, can they go back and amend it after? Can the city just come back and propose an amendment?
we've taken final action.
Final action.
We've taken final action. on it.
I will withdraw my amendment.
Why not?
No. Do we actually have a motion?
Well, if I may, just to define it so vaguely, I don't think that would survive a challenge. It'd be void for vagueness. I mean, anything and everything under the sun. That's just, and correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, but don't people need to understand what the basis of a law is to have it actually be enforceable?
Okay, is there a motion from the county side there?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Hayek. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. This passes.
Okay. Then let's move to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution approving the vacation of that portion of Overland Pass beginning 33 feet north of the platted center line intersection of Dan Ridge and Overland Pass, lying adjacent to Lot 20, Block 5, Split Rock Heights, 2nd Edition, and Lots 16 to 19, Block 2, Split Rock Heights, 3rd Edition, and ending at the north property lines of Lot 20, Block 5, Split Rock Heights, 2nd Edition, and Lot 16, Block 2, Split Rock Heights, 3rd Edition, all in Section 9T 101 NR 50W of the 5th PM, Minnehaha County.
Okay, this is a vacation, a request for vacation for a portion of Overland Pass. It's located in Split Rock Heights Residential Subdivision, which can be found on the east side of Sioux Falls between Powder House Road and 6 Mile Road, and you would go north off of East 26th Street at approximately the half-mile line to reach Overland Pass. This is a road that has never been built. It's just a right-of-way, and part of the right-of-way actually does go into what's known as Schaefer's Pond, as you can see on the map. This petition was presented by Julie Benz. She's a property owner who owns property adjacent to the right-of-way, and she stated that she requested the vacation as a way to start an association in the area to preserve the pond and its dam. And then she also said that she had concerns with this right-of-way being used as a conduit for pumping water out of the pond. I tried to research the history on Schaefer Pond. I went back through the minutes, which were sorely lacking, and couldn't find anything, no mention of Schaefer Pond. The original plat for Overland Pass was filed in April of 1977, and the owner certificate says, "We further certify that the streets and access roads contained therein are hereby dedicated to the use of the public for street and access road purposes." So it's not a private right-of-way. It was dedicated for public use. You had received 3 letters in your packet that were in opposition to the vacation. And their main reason was that this right-of-way does allow access to Schaefer Pond, which they use for recreational purposes. And then tonight, you received a letter that supports the vacation, which we received too late to get into the packet. South Dakota law grants the county commissioners the right to vacate a public right-of-way if the public interest will be better served by the proposed vacation. And then state law also requires that when it's in the joint area, the city council must also take action. My office and the city of the engineer's office have reviewed this proposed vacation. We're not opposed to the vacation at all, given the fact that it does go through the middle of a pond and this area is developed. However, it is being used, if not for vehicle access, it is used for pedestrian access to this pond. So before you need to take action either to approve or deny the request for the vacation of South Overland Pond. We did have some requests, and I know some of you heard from neighbors in the area that were asking for a deferral of this item. We did explain to them that it is advertised as a public hearing tonight, so we did have to have a hearing. Staff could not defer the item. And so I think they were a little confused on how to do a deferral on that. But I know that there are people here in the audience tonight to speak to this issue. And that's the end of the staff report.
Questions? Kenny and Bob.
Okay, I was going to put in a motion to defer this item until September 15th to allow other parties to be here also.
Second.
That's your motion?
Yes, sir.
To the 15th of September?
Of
Second.
September, yes, sir.
Yeah, just wait a second. We've got a motion on the table to defer item 15. We've got the motion there. Did you want something to say something, sir, back there? Yes. Okay.
Doug Brockhouse, 1501 South Overland Pass. I'm one of the petitioners. I'd like to, I believe the person that has requested the deferral is not an adjacent property owner, and as such, I question whether or not he even has a stake in this particular matter. He's not adjacent to the pond, and nor is he adjacent to the roadway that's being requested, being vacated.
But we got a motion that's been made and seconded to do it. So go ahead, Bob. Bob Colby, okay with Pat?
I'll pass because until the motion's over, I have a question, but it won't be germane to the motion.
We do have a letter from an adjacent property owner asking for a deferral from Marvin and Betty Coulter.
They're here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to, and I know this is a city motion, but the same motion then would come, if it passes, would be asked to be made by the county. And we run great risks when we respond to one or two people who ask us to defer. Next time we meet, there will be somebody else who can't come, and someone else is going to ask for a deferral, or has just as much right to ask for a deferral as today. There are all kinds of opportunities to get in touch with council people, councilors, as well as county commission. Email, telephone, letters. There are lots of ways to contact us to get the message across, just as well as appearing before the microphone. I just submit to you that there's just no end to the possibility of the number of times that we would be asked to defer.
Dee?
A couple of questions. Again, I visited with people involved in this too recently, and one question is, Ms. Herman, when you talked about state law as far as the pond is concerned and so forth, I believe I was told last Thursday morning in a rather lengthy phone conversation that the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and Pier had, as recently as May, given one of the neighbors, not adjacent, but neighbors, permission to take water out of that pond, which she's been doing, I think, for 20-some years. And so I was wondering about the state's involvement in this. I mean, as far as them being okay, or I mean, what's going on? It sounds like that he has approval.
Well, he has been doing it for over 20 years. Whether the state gave him approval or not, I don't know that. I haven't seen any
There's
records
a
of
person
that.
back there. This person wants to address that question. You want to come up and give your name and address, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Benz, and I'm the person that filed the petition. And you are correct. The state did send a letter, but it really relates to the letter is there's a qualification in that letter that I would be willing to share when we were able to meet. The other part I do want to say is that I know there's one person that has submitted for postponing. However, we have everyone that is in support of that here today to speak on behalf of vacating of the property. And so I would hate to defer it at this particular point in time with not knowing if these individuals would be able to be here in a month. So I'm just making that request to the Commission and the City Council.
Yeah.
Well, I would ask the Commission and the council members. We have a letter here from Gary and Susan Bills, and they are not in attendance, is that correct? And then the Coulters are in attendance, but we're going to be able to. So the only parties that are not here this evening are the Bills. Is that correct? Thank you. That was the question.
I have a question. Who owns the pond? Is this private? And since there are so many different landowners, is this a private entity? Is it a public entity? And if it belongs to, as most waters in the state has jurisdiction to the high water mark. So that's a question that I have.
This is a private pond, as if you can see on the photo. You can see that the lot lines are platted into the lake, so it is privately owned.
But does that establish their ownership?
Yes, our state's attorney says yes, it does.
Okay.
You know, on our city ordinances, you have to be an adjacent property owner, and the bills don't appear to be an adjacent property owner. Does that matter?
Well, this is a public hearing, so anybody can voice their opinion, and they did.
Go ahead.
I do have a question, or Pat, excuse me, in regard to this particular development, as that being a private pond, where these individuals marketed these properties with the understanding that there would be access to that pond, do you know?
I don't know. That was in 1977, so there's nobody around.
Because it appears from the way I'm looking at it that there are only 3 lots that abut the pond, is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
At this end of Overland Pass.
Thank you.
Gerald?
Mr. Mayor, I understand the issue for deferral, but I also think that even if whatever happens with the deferral vote, we can still take public testimony now from the people who are here, and then decide if we're going to defer it or not. Is that correct?
We can do that. We've got a motion to defer, but we can take hearing.
I guess I've had a number of calls and a number of emails, and I'd like to hear from some of those individuals that are here who may or may not be able to be here on the 15th, but I think it's important that we hear from them.
That's fine.
Mr. Mayor, may I just ask one follow-up question to staff before we hear public testimony? So this is the first time, I guess, that I have really honestly been led to believe that this pond is owned by 3 parties.
Not the whole pond.
Okay, so is this a pond that anyone can use?
There's public access to the pond and through the pond, so technically, I guess that strip,
And where's the public access?
that red, the part that's shaded in red there, that goes through the pond, that's the right-of-way that we're talking about vacated. That was dedicated to the public.
Okay, so
The rest of it is
if we
platted
agree to
lots.
that, if I just a follow-up question, if we agree to close this off, there will be no more public access to that pond.
Not on this side of the
Okay.
pond.
Further questions? Dee?
I had just one other area I was confused about is I understood that one of the 3 adjacent people besides Mr. Bills was opposed to this vacation, and so that's what I was, one reason I was confused is I thought you had to have 100% approval of the touching landowner, so to speak.
Not in the joint area. You're just required to have 2 members of the township sign the petition to vacate.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I was confused about that. I think I was...
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. You said that this was developed in 77?
Correct.
Is there some way we can get the agreement on exactly how this was developed? Is there anything in writing on
I
this?
tried to find that, tried to research it, and I could not find anything on it, and what was to be done with Schaefer Pond.
Further questions?
I'm sorry, I just have one other question. I'm still unclear on as far as what damage is being done by one person out there who's been withdrawing water for 20-some years, and I'm unclear on what is the problem with that continuing, and what is the advantage of the easement.
Well, what damage is being done, that I don't know. We've never had any proof that any damage is being done out there. I think this is a disagreement in the neighborhood about whether watering from that pond should occur or not. It's not under any ordinance that we enforce for or against using that pond for watering purposes. The advantage for the right-of-way staying open is that it gives the public access to the pond. If that's closed, then there's still access on the other side, but it's overgrown. You couldn't really get through there. So I think that's why there are some people that would like the access to stay open.
So I have a point of order. Are we going to, the city has a motion on the floor to defer, and I hear people taking testimony, but
You can take...
do we need some
We
order
just
in
got the
this?
motion, we got the motion before us, but you can take testimony at this point. The motion's been made. That's going to be the precedent motion when we take action. That's going to be the motion that's before us that Councilmember Anderson has made, so that will be what you will vote on first unless there's other action.
Mr. Mayor, for then point of order, are we going to then open it up for the public proponents and opponents as we normally would?
do that.
I would ask that we do that then.
The question I have, if we're looking to vacate this right-of-way, why are we vacating the right-of-way halfway through the puddle, and we aren't going to vacate the other part of the right-of-way? I mean, it's either all or none, it would seem.
Pat, can you answer that question?
Well, the simple reason is that's what was requested from the petitioner. That's the portion they requested to vacate.
Others who wish to speak, go ahead.
Again, thank you very much in allowing me the opportunity to clarify some of the questions that you may have. My name is Julie Benz, and I am a property owner just to the north, to the north of the proposed vacated road. I also represent a number of individuals who have land that goes into Schaefer Pond, as well as those that are many of those who are in support of this. One of the things is, as we looked forward, I've lived in that property for 15 years, and over that period of time, many houses have been developed. In fact, most of the houses on Grey Goose Circle came after my husband and I built our home. During that time, what we have seen is a number of things. One, as construction goes on, roadways are built, developments continue to expand out there. We've seen a reduction in the water levels, primarily because of silt coming off and running. And we've also, in June of this year, we had an opportunity to get together because we wanted to be able to look at what are the issues going on with the pond and to preserve the pond. It adds a lot of value to each of our homes. It creates a calming atmosphere and is one of the reasons why each of us are out there. One of the parts that we want to do is we looked at issues such as the pumping, we looked at issues such as the silt coming in, and then also the Hillies, whose property is on the very far right upper hand corner, also have the property that is responsible for the dam and maintenance of the dam. So in June, we had the representative from the Department of Transportation. We had Tim Shaw from the State Department of Natural Resources there, as well as property owners on the pond to look at what are some of the issues that we are faced with and what do we need to do to preserve that pond. I would defer to Pam Hilly to talk about the the dam, because it is reviewed and looked at on an annual basis, and recommendations are made to make improvements so that it is viable and it is maintained. That, for them, incurs a lot of cost. The next thing is the silt that's being in there. Some of the recommendations are that we need to dredge that so that we can maintain an environment that is conducive to fish and geese and everything else for the landowners around the pond. That is quite costly. The third thing is that we have someone who is pumping from the pond, and is pulling water from there. So when the three combined, all can have detrimental effects on our property value and on the viability of the pond. All of us that live around the pond are open to looking at putting in monies and supporting and creating a homeowners association so that we can maintain that. However, we are very concerned about doing that if there is a potential that a roadway can go through there and it can be drained, and the request can be drained. Currently, at this particular point in time, there is on the south side of the pond, Overland Pass has there's nobody that lives with an address of Overland Pass. Actually, Overland Pass is on the other side, and if you are a pizza delivery guy, you stopped at our house many times trying to get to the other side, because it is quite confusing. But what we'd like to do is vacate that road that has never been there so that we can ensure that we aren't going to have a road go through there. So then we can support our efforts in trying to maintain that pump, or maintain that pond, and the viability of it for our benefit and for the value of our home.
Questions? Julie. Kermit?
I have two questions.
Yes.
How is this
Go ahead.
pond fed?
It's spring fed, but also during heavy rains it washes from a creek just to up at the northern part. You'll see a creek that runs through it's past Powder House Road and Highway 11.
And then the other one, what was your understanding then of use of this pond by the neighborhood and the people in the neighborhood when you purchased your home, and what year did you purchase your home?
When we purchased our home, it was understood that our property lines went into the pond, and it was a private pond, and it was for our use. We maintain it. We don't have people walking through unless they've asked permission. So our understanding was that it was a private pond.
But my question was, what was your understanding of use by the people in the neighborhood at the time you purchased your place?
At that particular point in time, there was only the homes were only the Coulters and ourselves on the west side of the pond, and there was only one other person. So I can't say that I understood that it would be for access for everyone or the homeowners.
And what year did you purchase?
We purchased it in 1991.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. How deep is the pond?
Then that's a question right now is that there is a dead tree in there, and it has been said that it was 15 feet deep there. Originally, close to the shoreline, it was probably a good 3 feet deep, but at this particular point in time, it is shallowed quite a bit. I can't say, I would guess 18 inches maybe.
18 inches
along the shoreline.
Along the shoreline.
I'm sorry.
And also, has the silting,
Yes.
one would assume then that the shoreline has expanded, or what has happened to the shoreline?
It's kind of the shoreline. Well, we have a number of different facets on the shoreline is because of some of the animals, but the shoreline hasn't gone out. It's just coming up. It will start to go out farther, and we see a lot more reeds and shrubbery and bushes starting to come in there. We have seen a lot of greenage, where the weeds just start filtering up, and it's very difficult to use paddle boats, etc., on there during certain times of the year, depending on how much rain we do or don't get.
Thank you.
You said that you maintain it, or the neighborhood maintains it, and presumably you share the cost of that?
No, what we do right now is we maintain our own separate areas, but what we're looking at as we're moving forward is how do we preserve that? And some of it requires some cost. It requires cost for the Hillies to make sure that the dam is properly inspected and recommended changes are being made. We also are looking at if we do need to dredge it, whose responsibility would that be? Which would be, we're making an observation that it would be all of us around that pond that would have to do that.
Can you tell me, somebody's drawing water out of it, and what is that, for irrigation?
It is for personal irrigation. Other members around the pond either pump through the Minnehaha rural water or have dredged their own well,
And
dug their own well.
do you believe that pulling water out of the pond for irrigation of a lot causes it to significantly drop, or?
Last year, with the limited rainfall and significant watering, it did drop significantly, and I have some pictures of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask our city engineer to support? Chad, I'm not a water expert, but if the rest of the neighborhood has wells, and does it make much of a difference if somebody's drawing out of a well versus drawing directly out of the pond for irrigation as far as water level?
Chad Heavey with the City of Sioux Falls Engineering Division. I think the gentleman that's watering is the only one that has a well pumping out of there.
He has a pump out of the pond, not a well.
But is that any different than a well right next to the?
No, because typically a well that's going to be near that would be under the influence of that water level. In the document that the county prepared and gave to you, it did say that we have no opposition as the city. I will say that from a transportation system standpoint, the city will more than likely never need that right-of-way for the traveling public of the city. I will say, though, there is a chance, although it may be slight, that the city in the future may need access to that pond. I don't know the reasons, but the possibility exists. So I just want to state that.
Danny?
Julie, just a couple questions. You stated that when you moved in, only the Coulters lived there? The Bills weren't there at that time?
No, at that particular point in time, they had, their lot was filled with trees that they were watering and then sold and then build their house afterwards.
Okay, but they were drawing water from there when
Yes,
you
they
first
were,
moved
yeah.
in there?
And at that particular time, we had requested that they discontinue doing that, but to no avail.
Okay, also, as you're talking about the cost of maintaining the lake and the dam, have you spoken to all the property owners in the area, including the Bills and the Coulters, to see if they would be willing to share the cost of that, or?
The original intent was really to look first at the people who owned property that went right into the pond, because we felt that it was our property that we pay taxes on and that we would be responsible for. And so our original meeting was just looking at those people who had property that was adjacent to or into the pond.
Bob, let's for you up. Go ahead.
I did. I had a question for Chad again. Chad, this is fed by a stream that fills up occasionally during rain events from the north. And two questions: are there BMP ponds to the north of this, outside of Dolly Farms, and are there overflow pipes on the east side of this that would let the water out when it gets to be too much for the pond to contain it?
Well, I'll mention two things. There is a BMP pond to the south of here, and we have received complaints regarding construction activities that have allowed silt to enter into this system, whether it's been a city project or a DOT project or private development. I'm not aware of that. But there is no, just north of there is no BMP pond currently built.
Okay, then, but is there Julie, you indicated there was an overflow pipe at the east side of it, so that when the water level rises up to close to the top of the dam, that the water goes over the edge?
Yes, I believe so, and I'd have to defer to the Hillies exactly, because they would know exactly what that is.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. You said that you came there in 1991, and that's when the pond was built. Was the pond there when you came there?
No, the pond's been there for 30 years or whatever. When we moved there, it was terraced hills with grassy knolls. It used to be alfalfa fields, according to the letters and talking to Marv and Betty. It used to be alfalfa fields before it started going into the development. So it was a stock dam at one particular point in time. And then as the community grew around it, it became part of, all the property lines went right into that.
Very good. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Chad.
Question for either the state's attorney's office or the city attorney, whoever would might choose to field it. Because this is now being deemed as a private lake, then that means the owners of the property that underlies the lake assume all liabilities for health concerns that might be generated from that lake and any liabilities should the dam wash out and any potentials downstream.
That's certainly conceivable that a member of the public sends a child or, has a child go up that unimproved right-of-way now and take it up to the pond area and is injured in some capacity. There could be some kind of a creative personal injury claim about it being an attractive nuisance. And so I'd say there's some possibility for a claim to be asserted against the owners of the property which feeds into the pond.
Go ahead.
Well, I have a couple questions, again, and three of them quick. How large is your lot?
Our lot is 3.93 acres.
And you have a well, correct?
We do not have a well.
Oh, you don't have a well?
No.
And where do you get your water from?
Rural water, Minnehaha.
Okay.
Rural water.
Then the other thing, we're kind of confused here. This is a private pond, correct? That's what you said, it was a private pond?
I didn't say that, but someone said, my understanding is that it was a private pond.
Okay, then if it's a private pond, it's then somebody's private property. Who pays the property taxes on this?
We do. We pay property taxes on
the entire pond?
3.93 acres. We pay on our 9.3 acres. The other landowners adjacent all pay on their particular property.
So as we see this white line going in, that would be into the pond, you're paying property taxes on that?
Correct. If you look, the white line that goes in the north on the top part right there, yes, that is our property line going into the pond. And the same thing is true on the to the right of that. Those members are here as well.
So if this road were to be vacated, there's a section in there, who would pay the property taxes on the vacated section?
According to what I heard, what I received from the county planning, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that roadway would be then split down the middle, 33 feet to each property owner on either side of that. So if you took a line and drew through that, my husband and I would assume 33 extra square feet, or 33 feet along the one border, and then the adjacent landowners would assume the other 33 feet as taxes.
Thank you.
May I also, I'm sorry, if I could just speak to the liability. That is a huge concern of my husband and I as well. As last year, there were 2 young boys who live in the neighborhood who took a paddle boat and was out in the middle of the pond. And when I saw them, they had no life jackets on, which was very concerning to me, and asked them to immediately get out. And so that is of concern when people are using that right-of-way, and our property lines are within there. Granted, it would be very difficult to say whose property was it on, but that is a huge concern for me, as well as fishing, etc.
Question, if that were vacated, now, having had some nominal experience buying vacated property from the city, well, anyhow, we won't go there, but anyhow, would that not be, if it's vacated, would it not be surplus property that would be put up at public auction?
I'd have to refer that to Gordy again. Go ahead. Do you want to come up? You want to come up and? Wait till you get to the mic there, sir.
I just talk whatever I'm at. You know that. But if it's right away, I think before I said it's dedicated just for that purpose. There isn't any fee title given to anyone. The abutting landowners still own it. And if that is vacated, then it does just go half one way and half the other way from a right of way. and there isn't anything to sell because of the fact that there's no fee title in any governmental entity. They've only got a right-of-way for the use for whatever the right-of-way purposes was in the original document. Now, if there was a deed that said it gave a deed and fee title to that right-of-way, like sometimes you get in railroad right-of-ways and questions like that, but if it's just simply a right-of-way for road purposes, that's what it's used for, and if it's abandoned, it goes back to the abutting landowners. That's my feeling on it. And I haven't looked at, well, how that right-of-way was dedicated, but that's, I would say, is a normal rule.
Thank you, Justice Eloise Justice. But I do have a question then. As we talk about this property being used by everyone, and this is an assessment issue that I'm thinking, does the value then, do we need to look at the value of this property when it was a kind of a community project? They are assessed at a certain level. But then when we make it private, and I'm not sure who is the right person to have opine on that, but I would think the value, I'm looking at some of these, they have a private property, a private lake that currently is used by a number of people, so it's not quite as high in value. What do you do?
Well, I guess you have to look at your assessor. How do you value a lake? I guess you just value what the property is worth, and if it enhances the value because there's water there, that could be something that could be taken into consideration. But, you know, is it a private or, I don't know. I'd have to look at that because, you know, there are such things as public waters, too, if it flows through a natural waterway. But that's another day.
Just a comment I would make is, I mean, I think that that's the piece that's missing, and I would never support deferral because someone wanted to testify and couldn't come here. But it seems to me the cloudy issue here is where's the ownership? To me, that's the problem. I mean, if this is a private lake, it's a private lake. No one should be using it except the people who own it, which it looks to me like it's owned by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6 property owners. So, but it's just not clear. I don't think we have that kind of information before us today.
The water rights have been given to the Hillies. They are the ones who are in Pier. They're right. They have owned the water rights.
Okay.
Who owns that?
Bob and Pam Hilly have the water rights from Pier.
One question, do any of the deeds that these people bought when they bought the property address this issue?
I would have to defer that to Pam and Bob Hilly.
Further questions? Do you want to, sir, do you want to say something, give your name and address?
My name is Marv Coulter. My property butts the south side of easement we're talking about. A little history about the dam. I bought that property out there from Leonard Schaefer. All the land around there was his. He put the dam in probably about 40, 50 years ago to water his stock cows out there. The drain from the pond came from his land, and he told me there was some springs in there that kept the water in the dam. Now there's people about the water, the pond, and they think they own the water. The watershed is all the way from Sycamore Street south to 41st Street, the land that lays east of Highway 11, south of 26th Street, all drains into this pond. So whose water is it? The person that's pumping water out there might be his own water that drained off of his land. Who's to say it wasn't? Give you a little scenario. Many years ago, we had some wet years in South Dakota. It created some lakes in the north part of our state. Along with the water came fish. Along came the fish, came fishermen. Made small lakes there. The landowner says, you get off of my water. I own this water because I own the land under it. They took it into court. and the fishermen won. The man owned the land, he paid taxes on the land, he farmed the land, but the water wasn't his. So it probably goes the same thing with this dam. To me, water's God-given. Who has the right to say who's got that water, who has it? Just because you're adjacent to the water, does that claim that you have the water rights on the dam? I don't think so. The one who made that water came from heaven. Another thing, closing off this easement, what will that do for beautification? Somebody tell me what closing off has to do with the easement, making it beautiful. And we just talked about the taxes. I'm retired. I live on a fixed income. I don't need any more taxes. I'd rather leave it like it is. And like the gentleman said from the city or the county, someday you're going to want that easement to get around that pond. Why go through the hassle of closing it now and then try to get back into it sometime in the future? My recommendations, where the easement goes into the water or meets the water, there's a fence across there. I would say remove that fence, leave the easement as it is, so you don't have any problems down the road. Any other questions?
Questions? Kermit?
You said there's a fence across the easement at the water's edge? Is that right?
Yes, the easement's fenced off. It has been for quite some time.
Whose fence is that?
I don't know who put the fence up.
Having had some nominal experience with waterways and one thing and another, I would say that the United States Army Corps of Engineers has the jurisdiction over this, and I think that that should be checked out to find out just what is going on, because if you're going to put a dam across any kind of waterway, you're going to have 404 permits and a whole plethora of other things. This may have been put in by a person individually and illegally, and I think that whole thing needs to be squared away and found out just what is, what would you say, true and certain, because I think we've got a lot of things right now that we can't deal with because we don't actually know who owns what and who owns the water, who owns the property, and what to do with the easement.
Go ahead, Dee.
Was there, not for this man, but for the city, was there, city and county, was there any neighborhood meeting held recently on this issue? I mean, because I thought usually on vacations and so forth, easements, that we had some neighborhood meetings, and, I mean, can any of this be worked out with people?
Sure, go ahead.
It's the city's vacation policy that we would hold a neighborhood meeting, but that's what we do inside the city limits. I don't think the county has that requirement or that policy, so thus I don't think a public meeting ever took place.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mr. Mayor, it's just interesting because we have a number of people out in the audience and they're not all going to be able to testify, or maybe don't even want to testify. I'm guessing most of the people in this audience are here because of this issue, and I'm just wondering if most of you support closing this road, or most of you are opposed to this request. How many of you are opposed to the request to vacate? How many of you support that request?
In the case where the hands go up and we don't have any hands, there's a lot of people who would have liked to make this meeting today at this time. But it only gave us about 2 weeks to gather up enough people to be present here. But if you want this room chock full of, to leave it like it is, I can do that too.
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Coulter, you indicated that you had been there for quite some time, and on the north side of this small pond, isn't there an extension of this right-of-way going all the way to the north side as well?
Yes, there is. there should be a picture that shows the easement on the north side of the pond. Mr. Brockhouse is on one side, and I don't know who the gentleman is on the other side. I don't know my neighbors that good. But like I stated in the letter, you'd have to have a Sherman tank to get to the sumac. I don't think a mouse could get through there, much less somebody walking down with a boat or fishing rod to go to the lake.
Well, my question is this, sir. If we vacate that easement, won't that increase the burden on the north side landowner? Because if you want to get access to that lake, doesn't that property owner now bear that burden of making his property open up to allow people to get access to that lake then, as opposed to being accessed from the south side?
I would say that if you closed off the south, you would have to do something with the north to have people come into it.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any others? Okay, Mayor? Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, I do have another question here. Earlier in the conversation, there was a little discussion about the state giving someone access to the water. Do you have that in writing as what they gave? What permissions or?
Well, I have two things. I have the water rights. Oops, I apologize. I do have the water rights that were given to, a copy of the water rights that were given to the Hillies when they purchased it was transferred from Har to the Hillies. The other thing, I just want to say one thing just for the record on this as well, is you may have all received, in addition to the two letters that were opposing this, you may have received a letter that was unsigned, but had a number of names on it. I just want to, they have told me that I can state this, is that a week ago after the first letter went out, Tom Van Wy, whose name is on the bottom of that letter, had called me and said, Julie, I'm supportive of it. I don't know what difference it has to me. He has property to the west of Overland Pass. When I got this letter and talked to him, he was very surprised by that. The same thing is true of Ken Schaff, who is also a landowner just up the road on, you can see their house on the very far left-hand side towards the bottom. He was very surprised by that. So I just want to make note that there is no signature on this, and at least two of the individuals that I know are in favor of vacating, and I apologize, I just was able to talk to them last evening. So that's that.
While she's coming up with that information, a comment I would make is if I were a city councilor, I think I'd pay real close attention to what your staff person said, because eventually this is all going to be property that's going to be developed and will be, or further developed all around it, because this is going to be in the city limits before you can, shake a finger at it.
There also appears to be on the south side of 26th Street a dam that's being built, and we do not know what impact that is going to have on the pond as well, in the new development known as Copper Creek. I can't speak directly to that, but I know that there has been a dam with a pipe put in, so I don't know what that impact it has as well.
Are you guys on sewer, or do you have septic tanks?
We're on septic tanks.
That probably has more effect on that water than any future dam.
I'd like to address something too. Mention about lowering the level of the lake, the pond, whatever you want to call it. I've been there since 1977. And if you had a time lapse on a camera, say the 15th of June or 15th of July every year, and took a picture of that level of that water, it would stay the same. So if you're going to say that there's probably more evaporation goes out of that pond than anything else goes out of it, but the water has stayed the same all the years I've been there.
You want to come forward and give your name and address? come forward, give your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Rex Benz. I'm husband to Julie Benz. I live in Lot 20. A couple of things I guess I want to clarify. One is on the pumping. I will agree with Marv that the water level does come back, but during the summer months when there is evaporation, such as last year, the water level does go down significantly. We do have pictures to prove that, which is hard on the fish and everything else in the pond. Comment was made about the pumping. You know, does one pump affect it? There's nothing we can do about the evaporation and so forth. But if my calculations are right, take 18 gallons a minute and take that times, 60 minutes an hour, and take that times 24 hours, you come up with about 25,000 gallons of water. That's a lot of water.
Stock that pond,
The pond does have fish in it, yes.
but you don't stock it.
We did not stock it. There was fish when we moved there. Also want to make a comment about access, public access to that and that right-of-way. And there is a picture of it earlier, and I can't get to it, but the picture shows that is, you can go back one if you would, please. If the picture was a little bit further this way, you can see that, you'd be able to see that the right-of-way getting into that pond has just as many rushes and bushes and everything else as the north side. So someone would not be able to gain access to that pond from that right-of-way no more than the other side. If they get down that far, they either need to go on my wife and I's property or Mr. Bowden's property to the south. If you come back up further, and maybe flip a couple of pictures. Right there is good. If that bush, the bushes right there, you can see the kind of that culvert, cement culvert, and then there's the bushes, and then there is a fence post right there. That fence post is my wife and I's property line. That's the state property line. As you can see, there's bushes and trees going down to where that right-of-way is at. So for people to gain access to the pond, again, they're either going on our property and then going over into the right-of-way to walk down, and then they hit the bushes and the marsh and the weeds, and then again they need to go on either right-of-way. So I want you to understand it isn't a clear access to the pond as believed. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one other question on this Gray Goose Circle. When was that actually developed there around the lake? Those other properties, at what year?
I will find the document I have here. I believe it was the plan. It went through planning and zoning in 1987.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I don't know whether Mrs. Benz or Mr. Benz wants to answer them, but two questions regarding kind of what I'm hearing today. First of all, if your neighbor was not drawing a lot of water out of the lake, would we even be here today?
No.
Yes. I will be honest with you in the fact that there have been longstanding issues, obviously, since when we moved in and had made the request not to pump. There are personal issues, and if you look at the request to deny this, it really falls more personally.
Okay.
But we are here.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I think I know the answer. The second question I have is, if you want this access closed, and as Commissioner Colby said, we're going to leave it open up here, is it your desire to curtail or even to prohibit access to the lake?
No, we do not do that. We have people who come and fish, but we really look at, we had a number of people when we first moved down there that it was their pond. They had fished there for years and years. We had a lot of issue with fishing line, beer cans, et cetera, because it was a community pond.
Right. But the follow-up is, if you don't want to do that, you are prohibiting or keeping people from one of the very important access. This is a public access. You're asking us to take it away.
Correct. The other part I want to mention is that I have pictures of the road. The road is not is maintained by us. There's one other homeowner that has just built a home back there. You can see in that empty lot. But the road is maintained by us. We are responsible for snow removal, putting gravel on it, etc. So we have the responsibility to do that. If you look at a picture, it is not very wide. If we make it public access, where do those people park? Where do they go? That is another concern.
When I moved there, it was a pasture.
Wait, please.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Did you go to N and then D?
I am going to ask Justice Amundsen, Bob Amundsen, I'm going to ask you to come back here because I'm having a very difficult time with whether this is public or private in ownership. And I went over and water law is an interesting animal, and I know you've dealt with it many times, but if there has been a public access to this and it's fed and it's been used by the public, is it a public or private, or do we know, or what is the animal we're talking about?
Well, the only thing I can say is that I remember a case, and I can't remember the name of it, where there's a lot of water in Day County, South Dakota. And there was a dispute over whether or not a landowner could deny the public the right to go on the water to fish. And as I recollect it, that the decision kind of came down, and it's getting older, I don't remember the name of the case, that said that there was, state control by the departments over that water because it was a natural waterway or whatever, So there isn't a clear-cut answer till you really look into all of the different aspects of it, but it could be.
Could I ask a follow-up then, because we have the letter that was presented to us that came from a state agency in where they were asking about water rights to that property. And if the state has opined on that as to those rights and that rights have been permitted by water permits, does that change or alter it at all?
Well, the only thing, if you have a water right, you have to get the right to take water out of a public waterway. So they wouldn't be, if there wasn't a public waterway, how could they give any water rights? Haven't looked at it.
Your Honor, as following up,
Yeah,
I'll get rid of that eventually. This water right number that is held then was done from a public water right, and currently people hold those.
Well, if there is a document that grants it, it would have to be out of it. I
And
don't think the state necessarily grants water rights where they don't have any jurisdiction.
And I'm referring to water right number 3673, or 76-3, which is held by the Hillies, and then there is another one held by this gentleman that was pumping, which he was allowed to do. Well, he doesn't have one. The Hillies, I guess, do have one, and he would need to have one. So if they have a water right, then it only comes from public water.
Unless someone can set it aside.
Okay, thank you.
You got a motion?
We have a
Just
motion on the floor.
in the essence of time, we've got 3 budgets that we have to pass in 45 minutes, and I'll call the question. We've got to get those.
Is that a substitute motion?
Substitute.
Substitute motion, Costello to call the question. Is there a second?
Second, Anderson.
Anderson, second.
Clarify that is on whether or not to grant the vacation.
Call the question for cut off discussion and then to take action. That's the motion that we made. So, okay, it's been made and seconded to call the question, which means there's no more discussion on this. And the motion be made. Do you want to withdraw and make a motion? Do you have what you want to do with the item at home?
Katie's original.
Kenny's motion is defer. You want to act upon that motion? Right. Okay, that's the motion. We call the question, and we go back. If this passes, we go back to the main motion to defer. And Kenny, yours was to December 15th, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so call the question. All in favor of calling the question? We'll vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Question has been called on the city side. You guys
We need to have a motion. Is there a motion?
Move to defer.
Is there a second?
I'll second. No, it's a motion to call the question, I believe.
Oh.
You want to make a substitute motion there, Bob?
To do that, okay. Don't we have to agree to defer it?
Why don't we defer?
No, we have to agree to call the question.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to call the question.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, now that would mean to defer, okay.
No, to call the question.
Okay, Sandy, can we do a roll call vote on this?
It would be
Yes.
Hayek?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Chairman Tweet?
No.
4 to 1.
Okay, the question has been called, and we're back to the main motion to defer item number 2 until September 15th. That motion has been made to defer by Anderson, second by Staggers. Further discussion? There can't be no further discussion. So all in favor of deferring item number 2 until September 15th for the city side will vote yes. Those opposed vote no.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
City side has been deferred.
Okay, I think I finally have this figured
Well,
out.
we don't even have to take a vote, do we?
Yeah, we do.
Sure we do, because,
I would make a motion that we defer.
okay, we have a motion to defer. Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer. Roll call.
Commissioner Hayek?
No.
Colby?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Pecos?
No.
Tweet?
No.
Fails.
You guys can go ahead and vote on it, I guess.
Well, I am going to make a motion to deny if I may comment.
Was that a motion to defer or to not defer?
Not defer.
She made a motion to
And
deny.
now we have
I'll
another
second.
motion on the floor. I am very concerned about the ownership of this property and this water, and it appears from what we just heard that this is public water rights. And that's why water rights are granted for it. And I understand, I think the liability would be a real serious issue, but I do get real concerned after all of these years to go in and change it. And so I believe, as we just heard, if there are water rights given for these properties, it's public water, and I would like to see it left open.
Bob?
I may have misunderstood. That motion was to not defer?
The motion was to deny the request to vacate this land, this right-of-way.
The first motion was to defer, and 3 people voted no, Commissioner
Yes.
Tweet, myself, and Commissioner Pecos. And then I made a motion to deny the application, and I believe Commissioner Pecos seconded
Second
it.
it.
Right. Now, Ann defended her motion. Any other discussion prior to
Well,
the
if I
vote?
may, Madam Chair, I seconded the motion, and the reason why I seconded the motion was primarily because of the testimony that we took right here. There is natural springs that are developing that particular water, as well as there is a creek running in, apparently from the northwest or from the west, that clearly is not owned by the Hillies. That is a state waterway. There's issues related to whether or not this is actually state-owned water. And so with that being said, and the burden that would be incumbent on the landowners to the north to be burdened to provide the only access to this particular pond, I think that that is enough to go ahead and justify denial at this time.
Other discussion from the commissioners? I intend also to support this motion. I think that there are lots of questions here. The petitioner herself said it was not her intent necessarily to curtail or to prohibit access to the lake, and yet by granting this request, we would be putting an extra burden on the other side. I intend to support this motion. Further discussion from the commission?
Repeat the motion.
Okay, the motion, Sandy, is?
The motion was to deny the request to vacate.
And we have cut off public testimony at this, when we brought it into the table, yeah. Okay. Did you read the motion? Will you? Okay.
And
Okay.
this will be request to vacate being denied. Commissioner Hayek? Yes. Colby?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Pecos?
Yes.
Tweet?
Yes.
Passes 5.
Maybe they just
If
deferred
we
till
make a
after we voted.
motion, we have to make a motion in the affirmative. So we have to make a motion to approve on it, and then if your desires are so to vote against it, you can vote no, but you have to make a motion to approve the vacation at if the motion, because that's the way our rules read. And then you vote no if you're against, if you're in favor of denying the vacation, or you vote yes if you're in favor of the vacation. And if you don't take action, I don't know where we're at. So, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
What did we defer with Kenny's order?
We made a motion to defer, and that motion really between joint loss, so they made a motion now to deny it, so we're back to that. Now, we got to, because we lost that, so it's kind of an ambiguous area we're in. So we're kind of back to what you want to do. I don't know where you go. If you didn't have anything else on the agenda, I'll just tell you parliamentarily what you could do. If we didn't have the other issues, you could make a motion to adjourn, and then that would take care of the action. But we've got other items on the deal. Bob?
Mr. Mayor, I think that since the city has taken one action and the county has taken another, there's no action that is taken.
That's true right now.
Because at this point, we have to be both in
Right.
accord. We can't be in two
And
different levels.
if we vote against it, then we're back to zero. If we vote to approve the vacation, then we'd probably, at that point, you've got to take final disposition of this if it's on. You've got to make an action some way or other, either defer it or to go in harmony with one another. Go ahead.
If we are to reconsider the deferral and then vote on it, how long, is there a preclusion for the petitioners to come back? Is there a time frame that precludes it from coming back in 3 months or 4 months when they've got a little bit more research done on this?
They can bring back a subsequent request at any time. On this request, there would be no waiting period.
But somehow we've got to dispose of this item before us in one way or the
Well, if we
other.
reconsider the deferral.
Pardon?
Can we reconsider the deferral?
But if you do that,
doesn't the prevailing party, can't the prevailing party vote to reconsider?
but then you're back to, if they
Well, then we
go ahead, Bob, what are you going?
You moved to defer, but you didn't put a timeline on it, did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, September 15th. We had made that motion September 15th, so now, go ahead, Gordy. Well, you got it.
If I may, state law says that any resolution and order of the Board of County Commissioners vacating or within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of a municipality, which is exactly where we are, and this is the law in the chapter that we're talking about, vacating a public right-of-way. Any decision by the County Commission to vacate within the extraterrestrial area shall be subject to the approval of the governing board of the municipality exercising comprehensive planning and zoning powers. That said, if the county commission had said, we choose to vacate this road, it would require action or it would require concurrence from the city. Since the county commission has declined to vacate this road, I think that puts an effective, I hate to say that my clients have the superpower to veto this request, but I think it does.
I think you're right, because we've done that on some of the other issues that we've had, so I think that's right, because now you don't have, you don't have it, so I don't think we have to do anything.
I think it's done.
Yeah, I think it's very moot. Yeah, and you're right on that, Gordy, because I remember that if we send something down, you can't take action on it.
So just for clarification, so everybody here understands it, the city voted to defer it, the county voted to deny it, so it dies right there.
So, yeah, right, so it's denied. It's denied, because that's the final action, so that's right. Gordy's right on that.
Mr. Mayor?
So it's been denied, so let's...
Mr. Mayor, can I just add a quick comment? In the future, could we always allow the county to vote first?
Let's move on, because we've got to hurry. We've got just a half hour to get all the rest.
Item 3.
Go ahead.
Item 3. Item 3 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to the Homeless Advisory Board.
Unless, go ahead, quick.
I'll be really
Real
quick.
quick.
In your package, you should have the resolution that reappoints 7 members of the original members to the Homeless Advisory Board. I'm Judy Buseman, chairman of that board. We would request your approval.
Questions others want to address the council? Is there a motion by the city?
I'll make the motion on behalf of the county.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Same motion by the city?
Second, Lips.
Costello, and Litz seconded it. Further comments? No further comments. All in favor of that motion will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
That motion has prevailed. 7, 1 excused. So let's go to 4.
Item 4 is a joint budget hearing for the Siouxland Heritage Museum.
Who's taking that one? Oh, okay. Let's try to keep it succinct if we can.
Good evening. Bill Hoskins, Director of the Siouxland Heritage Museum. I'll try and be as brief as possible. The Siouxland Heritage Museum budget, our funding is not exactly a straightforward thing. Tonight, under the joint cooperative agreement, we really need to look at 3 specific budgets of 5 that we have. One is the operations budget. This is a joint budget that is supported jointly by the city and the county. The budget needs to be adopted in a joint resolution. The total amount and that amount that's adopted is then divided 50% by the city and the county. We'll also have the Museum Special Enterprise Fund budget, which is is a revenue fund that has some relation to the operations budget. That also needs to be adopted this evening. And another revenue fund, the Museum Store Fund. I'll start off with the Siouxland Heritage Museum's operations budget request. There are some changes from last year. Principally, they come in the area of human resources. Minnehaha County has this year adopted a new pay matrix, and that basically accounts for a large portion of the proposed increase to the museum's budget. A total of $27,159 is our total request. Human resources, let's see if I'm getting my memo right here. The non-salary portion of the budget, we're also asking for a small increase of $8,287, principally dealing in the area of advertising. Our revenue budgets, we have the Museum Special Enterprise Fund. The Enterprise Fund was created a number of years ago. We're asking for a budget in 2009 of $85,025. Probably the most significant area of that as it relates to our operations budget there are 2 staff positions, an exhibits assistant and a special events coordinator. 1/4 of their salary plus their benefits comes from the enterprise fund to supplement the operations budget. So although they appear in the operations budget, that $32,000 that you'll find in the description of the enterprise fund is actually going to support the operations budget. And the enterprise fund has been a great asset to the museums. We also have the museum store budget of $30,528. Additionally, there are maintenance budgets, the old courthouse maintenance budget that's supported by Minnehaha County, Pettigrew Home and Museum maintenance budget that's supported by the city, but those are not on issue for the joint budget hearing. Do we have questions?
I don't have questions. I'm going to make a motion because I know the city council has a meeting at 7 and we have a couple more budgets, so I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I'm sorry? Yes, for the county portion of this budget, all the budgets, yeah.
The museum. I was doing the museum, which includes operations, enterprise, and store. Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, and just for your information, we've already passed our provisional budget, and that's been filed with the state, so this changes nothing. So that's probably the reason we don't have any questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And I would also recognize the board chair, Diane Metley, who's here to support the director.
Wishes of the city on the Siouxland Heritage Museum budget.
I make a motion to approve the budget.
Okay, motion by Knutson, seconded by
Brown.
Brown, seconds. Further comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz? Staggers?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passed, 805.
Item 5 is a joint budget hearing for the Siouxland Libraries.
Sally Felix, Siouxland Libraries. I'm going to be even briefer than Bill. I have had an opportunity to meet both with the City Council and the County Commission to give you our highlights, what we expect to accomplish in 2009. I believe you have the budget information before you, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I would move to approve the library budgets.
Second.
A motion and a second on the county side. Discussion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the city's portion of the library budget.
Brown moves. Is there a second?
Second, Anderson.
Anderson seconds. Further comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the Siouxland Libraries will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
All members present voted 8-0. Item 6.
Item 6 is a joint budget hearing for Metro Communications.
Mr. Mayor, I need to excuse myself from this budget.
Okay, it'll be noted that Councilmember Brown will be excused from this.
Corky Miles, Interim Director, Metro Communications. In May, the Metro Management Council forwarded the budget this past Wednesday. They made an amendment to that. I believe that was forwarded to you this week. The change, I'll be quick, was reducing from 3 staff requests to 1 staff request. The only change that made was moving $90,088 to cash flow and reserve. The county and the city share remain the same.
I would make a motion for the county to approve those, the Metro budget as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I have a question for Sue, I guess. When we passed our provisional, it didn't look exactly like this, right?
Sue Rouse, County Auditor. The total Metro budget did not look like this, but the county share, which is the part that really appears in our budget, looked exactly the same.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions or discussion? All in favor then of approving this budget on the county side, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Corky.
Same measure for the city.
Okay, Costello moves. Is there a second?
Second, Benega.
Benega seconds. Further comments?
You have a question?
Go ahead.
You said we're adding an additional person.
Instead of 3 that were initially adopted, we've reduced that to 1.
And why do we need another person?
When I came in June, I reviewed the budget. 3 originally were put in there for the effective and efficient management of the dispatch center itself. There was 1
Are we
person.
getting more calls, or?
We have, once the agency went to standalone, there was a lot more tasks and duties that take place within that used to be farmed out to both the county and the city.
Okay, we've got a motion been made and seconded to approve the Metro Communication budget. All in favor of that motion, yes. Those opposed, no.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown? Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
That motion has been approved 8-0. Is a motion to adjourn on the city side?
One piece of old.
I have an item of new business as well.
Old business. Okay, old business is I really am a little bit bothered by having the museum, a joint appointed budget or joint agreement budget being put in with the library, because this is now plugging in 2 layers of bureaucracy of supposed oversight on the museum when this is a joint agreement between the city and the county. The museum has a board that oversees its budget and brings and approves that, which the museum director then brings to the city and to the county. It's just as the same as in the library, where there's a museum board that brings this particular budget to both the city and the county. Now, I just really feel that when we have a joint appointed, or not a joint appointed, but a joint agreement, that we should not have, and in this case, a department head for the city that appears to be oversight over a department head in the county.
Well,
I think that's a bad precedent to set.
Well, that's our person that we have as a liaison with the museum board, and they do, it's going to stay that way, because when you look at the partnership we have here, we've got some money that's invested in that, and so that's going to stay that way. And if that's not, with the county side, if they aren't in favor of that, that's fine. We can put a committee together from the county and the city. If you want to take the city out completely, that's fine with me. But it's going to stay.
I'm not saying that we should abrogate any kind of a joint agreement, but I think that when you have a city department head that for all intents and purposes appears to be a superior person over a county department head.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to cut this off just in the interest of the city council's meeting shortly, and you may not be suggesting that we abrogate this partnership, but I think the mayor is saying they make their rules, they decide where their budgets lie, and they may be the ones that would abrogate the partnership if we stick our noses in it.
I have one new business item, and I want to say thank you to the city for understanding some of the problems we've had in county government related to the imposition of a new state system to issue tags. I'm holding a copy of Sioux Falls police citation that was issued yesterday for expired tags from July. The person's tags expired in July. They got a ticket yesterday for, unfortunately, not having current tags. Cost $104. The response from the wife of this particular individual was they just dropped a couple $100 on school supplies, and now they got another $104 ticket. And it's really too bad, because enforcement of this particular statute is actually going to be going through the state's attorney's office. It's a state charge. City Sioux Falls police officer wrote the expired tag ticket, and unfortunately it's going to be dealt with the state court system. And so we would like to have a little bit of understanding on the part of the City of Sioux Falls, a little forbearance and understanding with the problems that we have with our licensing system we have at the Treasurer's Office. It seems to be getting squared away, but we are going to have situations where people, unfortunately, are probably driving with expired tags, so we just ask for the city's understanding.
No, I appreciate it. Well, I got a meeting tomorrow with him, so I'll talk to him about that, John.
Yeah.
Second.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion been made, second. All in favor? Yes, those opposed, no.
Councilmembers Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown? Costello?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.